Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next YouTube video, and this is going to be my Transformers Prime Season 1 and 2 kind of review. Obviously I'm doing individual episode reviews for Season 3 Beast Hunters, but I definitely do want to give my thoughts on the opening 2 seasons of the show because, you know, it might help you like understand more of my thoughts on Season 3 as we go forward. But anyway, I'll just get straight into it. Brief talk about the animation style of the show, and um, basically, you know, it's CG animated, obviously, like Star Wars: The Clone Wars and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles show that's out. And I think this is a very impressively done CG animation because, especially because the Transformers themselves have to have 3 separate models done for them as opposed to one for most other shows. They have to have a vehicle mode model, they have to have a robot mode model, and then a model that kind of shows it kind of converting from one form to another, the kind of whole exploding bit and coming back together, transforming model. So that's why there's not as many characters in this as, say, a Transformers animated, where they can just design a new character and kind of do it like that. They have to put a lot of effort into the 3 separate models for each character, and it's the animation style I think works, and especially the aesthetic for the Transformers, because the movie, for instance, didn't really get the aesthetic that right because it was overly complicated. It was like exploding metal, too complicated, and almost didn't look like it transformed from a vehicle because there were so many different parts. While, say, Transformers Animated, the previous Transformers show, maybe did it a bit too simplistically, where there was a lot of blocky parts, a lot of smoothness, and maybe didn't transform enough. But with Transformers Prime, you kind of get the best of those 2 worlds in that they have most of the characters have, at least Optimus and Bumblebee have for the most part, their movie look, but simplified in the kind of animated style, where stuff like their legs, arms, and chests are simplified and made a bit smoother, which overall helps the animation to be more expressive, and it's just really well done. So the animation is really cool, and the fight scenes, especially with the Transformers, just feel epic, and you can feel the weight of the punches. That, like, it's not just a human punching another human, but this is tons of metal punching another ton of metal in the face, and that works so well with the kind of sound design from the show as well. Briefly touching on the music, I suppose the big theme that you always think about with the show is the Transformers Prime theme, Team Prime theme. I love that piece of music. I could just listen to that music all day. It's basically the opening theme music just kind of extended out, and it's the Optimus Prime theme. I absolutely love it. It's so epic and just works in the epic moments of the show. Not that the rest of the music is very forgetful, but that one just stands out as just being amazing. I do like the rest of the music. Brian Tyler, I think it is, who does it, does a really good job on the whole show, and it's really well done. Getting into the story and characters, Season 1 is definitely the introduction to the show, what it's about, in that the opening 5-parter explains the situation in the show, in that it's, as with many cases with Transformers show, it's Autobots and Decepticons coming to Earth, taking the war to Earth after Cybertron's been basically destroyed by the war, and it's basically the ragtag group of who's left is left alive. But what this show does very interesting in that it's the last few Autobots left. They're all scattered basically across the stars. There's a few left on Cybertron, but for the most part, it's just Team Prime, which is, you know, Optimus, Bumblebee, Bulkhead, RC, Ratchet, and Cliffjumper at the start of the series, against, you know, Megatron, Starscream, Knockout, Breakdown, Makeshift, and a whole army of Vehicons, as well as the Decepticons having the ship, the Nemesis, to aid them as well. So the Autobots are completely outnumbered, but because Megatron's been missing for the past few years and searching for something to kind of bring back to kind of end the war eventually, once and for all, I mean, It means that the war has kind of been off until the series starts again. Obviously the series starts with Starscream in charge, and that's when the first attack between the sides happens for a few years, and Cliffjumper is killed. And the death of Cliffjumper in the opening episode serves to, one, show that the show is not pulling any punches, that none of the characters are safe. Characters will die in this show, which I think it's definitely important to like showcase that sort of thing in cartoons very early on and these sort of shows, that characters can die. And episode 1 doing that to a member of the last few Autobots works very well. But throughout the season, obviously we get various episodes. I think what it has to do with a pretty large cast, I suppose, in the grand scheme of things, is that you have to introduce a human cast, a Transformers cast on both sides, just Autobot and Decepticon. It works well in that at least in season 1, the episodes kind of focus on certain Transformers. So like the opening 5-parter kind of focuses on the humans, I suppose, mainly, and then them meeting the Autobots. So it's kind of equal coverage of all the Autobots and humans. Then you get like the episode after that, maybe is an Optimus and Bumblebee focused episode. Then throughout the season you have Bulkhead and Miko focused episode, you have a Ratchet focused episode near the end of the season. And then they at time takes a break to maybe introduce a new villain and to focus more on the Decepticons. So I think it kind of, at least in season 1, they do a pretty good job of like giving each of the characters their own focus. Bumblebee, Knockout and Breakdown are probably the 3 characters who get the least amount of screen time, but not to the point where you just don't know them at all. Bumblebee maybe is guilty of kind of not knowing who he is because he can't talk, while Soundwave, who also can't talk, or at least doesn't decide not to talk, is done well because of the atmosphere and tension he creates every time he's around. So the show does that well. And then going into season 2, they kind of get a bit more plot focused, though the show does get a bit lost, at least especially in the middle part of the season 2, lost hunting relics. So much of season 2 revolves around hunting relics, and they just struggle to get the tension and like how important each relic is through. Episodes like when they found the Star Saber, called the episode titled Legacy, does that really well because Megatron is absolutely terrified of Optimus getting a hold of that weapon, and that works. And I don't think it's really diminished by the fact that the previous 10 episodes had also focused on getting other relics, but all those 10 episodes kind of are diminished by the episodes before and after them being about that. So they just needed to really calm down with the relics, I think, and not have that many. But I suppose it's something like you can complain about now, but they actually did use the relics reasonably well in that near the end of season 2 they started to bring them out. They actually started to use them rather than just collecting them, and it all kind of led to a head in the season finale of season 2 where all the relics were out, the two sides were just going at each other and stuff was happening. And it really did work, and you kind of understand, oh, so that's why they had so many relic hunts. They were setting up for amazing battles using them and stuff like that. So season 1 is the introduction season. You get to know all the characters, you get to introduce to most of the villains, while still having the kind of story of near the end of season 1, Unicron being introduced, and then Optimus losing his memory going into season 2, getting it back, and then the search for the relics, the Iacon relics, and then obviously ending with the destruction of the Autobot base and what is assumed is the death of Optimus, and the Decepticons effectively winning the war. So the 2 seasons actually work well. The story from episode 1 to 52 is actually really good when you watch it all on its own. Yes, there are kind of a few lulls in both seasons, maybe near the middle, where they kind of get too focused on relics in season 2, and maybe get too focused on episodes that don't feel as strong in season 1. But I think on the whole, the series is actually done really well. And especially characters like Starscream and RC are done really well. RC, with the backstory of having lost two partners, she loses Cliffjumper in obviously episode 1 of the show, and before that in her past, Arachnid killed her previous partner, Tailgate, so that leaves her with a lot of kind of regret. She's kind of very protective of Jack because of this. And then like when Jack's mother finds out about the Transformers, the two have that sort of connection, and that they both want to look after Jack. And so RC is done really well, and she has a whole revenge plot against she wants to kill Arachnid and Starscream, but that's not really the Autobot way. So she's one of the best kind of done characters in season 1 for the Autobots. And then Starscream throughout the whole thing is just so fun as a character. He kills obviously Cliffjumper in the opening episode, so you know he's not completely fun. He has this really cruel side to him too. But then so much stuff, bad stuff, happens to him. Whether it be Megatron constantly like bringing him down, just like beating him up, never respecting him too much. Then he goes out on his own to try and prove himself, and it kind of works in part, but then even worse stuff happens to him, and then he eventually joins the Decepticons at the end of season 2 and basically helps them win the war. So Starscream kind of wins big in the end and stuff like that, so it's really good for him. Optimus, you know, and some of the other characters have decent development throughout the season, but I think Transformers on the whole isn't really the type of show that needs to have the characters go through incredible arcs and stuff like that. It's very much about the action and the tension of the war and how that affects like the humans and the planet they're on. So, you know, in terms of my favourite episodes, sorry about that noise, that's the washing machine out there on, I think. So, some of my favourite episodes of the season, of the whole thing, are in season 1. I actually really like Scraplets, or Scrap Heap it's called actually. And now on the whole, like, this kind of looks like a filler episode because it's not really. It's just the Autobots in their base for the most part, and then RC and Optimus out in the wilderness of like Antarctica. But why I really like it is that you get to know the characters a lot. It's a very character-focused episode that's very much needed, in that it shows the humans interacting with the Autobots kind of outside of the war. The war isn't really a factor in this whole thing, in that you get to see how close the team are when Optimus and RC think they're going to die in the cold. And, you know, they hold hands when they think they're about to die, and, you know, RC makes a joke about maybe what caused this was Bulkhead smashing something. He always does that. And then you really get to know Optimus when he says the amazing line of, you know, although Bulkhead may be too large for this world, his inner strength knows no bounds. One should never be measured by size alone. So you get the sense that Optimus really cares for his teammates, and that he knows them so well and is willing to like go out with them and just like die with them and stuff like that. It's really, there's really good character development, and like back in the base, you know, everyone's getting injured by the Scraplets, and the humans help to win the day. And at least Ratchet, that amazing line of, you know, like, it happened on a Saturday or something like that, when the kids were off. And then, like in season 2, one of my favourite episodes is Legacy, which I mentioned before, the episode where the Starsaber is introduced, and this, as an introduction of a relic, was done so well, because Megatron is petrified of Optimus getting a hold of the Starsaber, because he knows what will happen when it happens. And then your Smokescreen helps to get it, and then Optimus eventually gets his hands on the sword, and it's amazing. That scene when Optimus just cuts a mountain in half and then nearly takes out the Decepticon ship with one blast of that sword, it's an amazing moment. And I think why season 2 is so strong for me is because Smokescreen is introduced for about the final 10 episodes, and he just freshens up the show so much at the end of season 2, because he's this new Autobot who really wants to prove himself in battle, but this is happening at the same time when they need everyone with their heads screwed on for the kind of final parts of the war, and you know, he proves himself to be a really good warrior, but he kind of has this big sense of destiny that's kind of affecting everyone. So Smoke Screen is a really cool character going forward. But you know, overall, I highly recommend Transformers Prime Season 1 and 2. I think the DVD sets are out, at least in America, maybe Canada, and they're really good stuff. The 52 episodes of Season 1 and 2 are good. There's not really any like bad episodes that you'd say like that one's just terrible. But there are some really high quality episodes. I could talk for ages about the show, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to pretty much leave it here. I'll probably mention stuff about Season 1 and 2 as I go on with my Beast Hunters reviews, because I think Beast Hunters, even from the first episode, is just on this whole other level to Transformers Prime so far, because of the amount of tension and action going on in Beast Hunters, because of how Season 2 ends. But I think watching Season 1 and 2 before Beast Hunters is pretty much required. It's good stuff. So thank you for watching this video, and bye.